Hey guys, thanks for being here for this episode of Fast Keto. Today I'm thrilled to have Sylwia Tabor joining us, and she's known on Instagram as the Biohacking.chick. She is a biohacker and also an entrepreneur, and is launching and has been in the process of launching a new product called Carnivore snacks. And today we're talking all about biohacking, from her time and years of being vegan, vegetarian, raw vegan, all the way to keto and carnivore, and what she has learned along the way, going through all those different variations on her diet and lifestyle. And we also get into a few topics a little bit deeper with women's hormones. And it was a really fun chat. And of course, at the end, we talked all about how she founded Carnivore Snacks, which I know is going to be a smashing success. It's a carnivore chip, not really a jerky, but a chip version of like ribeye and grass-fed meat, and it supports regenerative agriculture, which is fantastic. So hope you guys enjoy this episode with Sylwia. All right, good morning, Sylwia. Thank you so much for being here with us today on Fast Keto. I'm thrilled that you could be here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
I love that your name is Biohacking.chick, because I'm all about biohacking too. So how did you come to be the Biohacking.chick?
Well, it was kind of funny because it started on a dating website, actually, because this guy had I was always into like doing all this like weird things, and I never had a name for it. And then one year I decided I'm gonna start like dating, and I did the whole Match.com thing. And that one guy, in his description, like he had described like everything that I was doing, and then he had a name for it. It was biohacking. I'm like, oh, this is super interesting. You know, like I wasn't interested in the guy itself, like I wasn't attracted to him, but then I started talking to him. And he kind of like pointed me towards like the Bulletproof podcast, and I kind of found out that whole life through this guy. So this is how I put the name or found the name for it. And then I started discovering like everything else through Dave Asprey and the Bulletproof diet and all those things. So that's kind of how I decided on the name. And then kind of now I'm hating it a little bit because of, you know, like what people associate with it. So for me at this point, it kind of means more like biohacking, a way of like ancestral living, versus like for many other people, it means biohacking your body by injecting some sort of a like chip or having some sort of mechanical part to the body to improve. I've seen some biohacking conferences in Europe that literally like half of the human looked like a robot. I'm like, this is not my kind of biohacking. But yeah, that's pretty much how I came across it.
It's like the singularity, like Ray Kurzweil, singularity. He talks about that moment that we're going to merge with machines and truly be. But I like to say we kind of have already done that, because I don't know about you, but this thing is like a part of me. It's hard to leave the room without it. So it's like, I feel like we've already had the singularity, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and there probably will be time where you're just gonna press some sort of button on your hand somewhere, and it's just gonna be like this, illusion come up, and you're just gonna be clicking, and you won't even need the physical thing with you anymore, which is kind of scary, because I'm already like panicking when I leave my phone at home and start driving. I'm like, oh my God, and just like this fear inside. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so attached to this like little box, so yeah, it's kind of scary but convenient at the same time.
It is. I sometimes want to throw mine in the river and run in the other direction. I have that thought quite often, and then I'm like, but no, I love it. Yeah, so I get it. But I think you tend to focus on the biohacking aspects of how to optimize, engineer your life, being an engineer, to be as optimal as possible. So, I definitely get what you're expressing with the name. It's cool to know the origin story of it too. So you're a coach, and you've also been biohacking and sort of doing these different strategies and things over the years since you were about 13. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Ever since we moved to US, me and my siblings, my parents lived in US for a while. And when we moved to US, everything has changed because I was growing up in Poland on a little farm, and you know, we grew up running around. There was pretty much zero TV watching, and we were, living off of whatever we grew. And then we came here to US, and all of a sudden, like, my body went crazy on top of, started developing and becoming a teenager, all that stuff, and the culture shock. But I noticed right away that something was wrong, just from the foods we were eating. And when my mom bought store-bought milk, I'm like, Mom, what is this? Like, what? It doesn't taste like milk. Mom, can you get me real milk? She's like, what do you mean? This is milk. And so it was like little things like that like I was pretty much sleepwalking on daily basis. Like, I felt horrible. And since then I've decided, for whatever reason, I always associated it with food. So I started looking into that from get-go. So yeah, it started really early in my life.
That's really interesting. And you did a post the other day that I was like screaming at my head, like, yes, it was about how vegans and carnivores have more in common, than maybe they realize. Maybe we realize it more having been both. But it really resonated with me, and it's so true how, ultimately the goals are the same. They're just kind of having different manifestations. So how did you first sort of become vegan, vegetarian, and then make the transition over now to being carnivore? And how long have you been doing a carnivore diet?
I started vegan basically for the environmental reasons, and probably like most vegans, I watched the documentaries, and in all the documentaries, they basically show you all the wars that they can find that happen maybe like 1% of the time. And at that time, I didn't know that, but watching it, it just made me so upset, and I already had a big grudge against Monsanto with all the grain and all the stuff that they're doing. So then I found out about, the whole farming and that how animals are raised. And that kind of like upset me a lot. So I decided, like, okay, I'm going to go vegan. And I was calling a vegetarian because for me, a vegetarian, like in Polish, basically meant just plants. So, but then I found out that in America, it means you can still eat some dairy and stuff like that. So I started with cooked vegan for a little bit, and then I transitioned into raw vegan. And raw vegan was just very depleting for my body, but I still continued with it for probably 3 years. And I've noticed that a lot of people who go raw vegan, they just start really deteriorating very quickly. And when I lived in California, I kind of noticed that there's so many vegans in California. You can see which one is one that kind of lives off of the unhealthy vegan foods, that all the processed, the burgers, and the one that's like raw vegan, mainly eating just fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and all that stuff. And the one that lives off of raw veganism is very fragile, very weak. You can see like the kind of ashy skin tone, and the teeth are kind of going gray. Those are the raw vegans that have been raw for so long, and they're just keep going because whatever their reason might be, So for me, that was the case as well. And after 3 years, my body was just falling apart. I was getting my ribs were getting fractured very frequently, at least probably like every 2 months, and it was so painful. And at one point I ended up in a hospital, and my doctors were basically like, you know what, like you have to like eat some animal foods, like at least some eggs, some fish maybe, you know. But I was still pretty persistent. I started coming up with different like skin rashes that were itchy, you know, like brain fog, zero energy. Then I discovered a fruitarian diet, and then they were saying like, oh, you know, like the skin rashes are going to go away, your digestion is going to be perfect. So I did that for maybe not 9 months or close to a year, and I very quickly became depressed. Just my energy, the sugar crashes from eating all the food were very intense. Then the depression came on, and eventually I was just like, you know what, I've had it, you know. And I developed binge eating disorder, and it was just very hard, you know. Like I could sit and eat all day, and my brain wasn't just getting your full signal, you know. So I could just have a belly as big as a 9-month pregnant woman, but my brain was literally still craving food. And I was craving like fatty nuts, and like a fruitarian, and I just like gave in, and I would binge on nuts because on fruitarian diet nuts are not allowed. So I would just binge on macadamia nuts and like other nuts or eat even jars of nut butter. That was like my thing. And I noticed that I would crave like the fattier, like more saturated type nut. And then after that, I was just, you know what, like this is not worth it. I was basically not living at all. I felt like I was half dead most of the time, and the depression got to a point where I pretty much wanted to take my life. And from there, I kind of discovered Jack Kruse and his leptin reset. I was trying to find a way to stop the binging process, because then it turned into like severe bulimia. So I found the leptin reset through him, and he basically recommended eating kind of ketogenic diet, but it was based heavily on meats and seafood. And his recommendations were basically, you know, eat as soon as you wake up, probably like within 30 minutes of waking up, and eat a lot of like fatty meats. And, you know, if you want to have some asparagus here and there, like have that. So, and then after 2 weeks of doing that, like my binging and purging went away. I'm like, oh my God, like my brain feels so good, you know? So that was kind of like my introduction to like keto carnivore, but it still wasn't like keto wasn't as popular as it is now. And carnivore was like nowhere near being discovered
Yeah.
or talked about. So from that, I kind of like went and like experimented with different things, and you know, and I was feeling good at that time, and all the like health physical issues went away. And from there, you know, I kind of did plant-based ketogenic diet, and I noticed that and it wasn't vegan by no means. I was still eating like a little bit of sardines, like maybe once a week, some eggs, and I was still reacting to foods. So later I noticed, I'm like, why am I being like so bloated from just eating Brussels sprouts, you know? Or I would eat ghee as well, and peely nuts, and I could never get satisfied. And I was going back, I felt like I was reverting back to the binge eating, because I could literally eat 8 ounces of ghee topped with probably like a pound of peely nuts, and I was still hungry. I'm like, this isn't normal. Like, what's going on over here? And I was just trying so hard to like stick to the ketogenic, you know, ratios, macros, and all that stuff. And it just wasn't working for me. And then I went through some health issues. I had necrotizing fasciitis. And after that, I was in the ICU for a week. And I was just loaded with different antibiotics because the infection wasn't going away. So they were trying to use everything. And after that, my gut was just destroyed. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't even drink water anymore. My gut is hurting. Like, I don't know what to do at this point. And that's pretty much what led me to trying carnivore diet. And that was like the first introduction. It was through Instagram. And it was funny because the guy that I discovered the biohacking from, he kind of told me like, oh, why won't you try carnivore diet now? I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, just eat all meat. I'm like, you're crazy. Like, I'm going to get cancer. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, I think I'm going to try it. I'm like, yeah, good luck with that. You're going to get, colon cancer, like, pretty soon, So we've been friends and talking about, like, this, like, different stuff and biohacking things. And he, like, whenever he would find something new, he would let me know about that. And then he forwarded me the podcast of Sean Baker with Joe Rogan about carnivore, and I listened to it. I'm like, you know what? Like, I have nothing to lose, so I'm gonna try it. And it's been over 2 years now on carnivore, and still experimenting a lot within the carnivore diet with how much fat, how much protein, is coffee okay, how much water, how much salt, because it seems so easy, but then I go back to when I heard about it. I'm like, what do you mean carnivore? Like, what does that mean? You're just eating meat? Like, is fish allowed or eggs allowed? Is dairy allowed? So I kind of get how many people get confused now with when they hear carnivore. And for me, it's like, what are you confused about? I mean, carnivore, you're just eating from animal kingdom, So yeah, it's been two years now, and I'm loving it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, my journey is really, really similar to yours. So I definitely resonate with a lot of the different points there. And I wonder if we knew the numbers of how many people heard the Sean Baker, Joe Rogan podcast. That was like, I mean, it's amazing how many people that actually, got to all around the world too, that heard that episode. And he's got a massive audience. We know that. But so now you've kind of been doing it for a couple of years. What do you find what's your day-to-day carnivore look like that you've kind of optimized for yourself? And like, what are your health goals now?
So now I know that there's a lot of talk about, should I eat organ meats? Should I not eat organ meats? Like, I know you had Kelly on your podcast, and she's kind of just ground beef type of girl. So, I mean, she's been doing it for 10 years. That's been working for her. I've been raised on basically back in Poland on pork and eating liver and eating rabbits. Like, we were growing rabbits and then making pate out of them. So for me, it wasn't like mentally, for me as a kid, it was just like a normal thing, So it wasn't like, oh, it's a bunny, like I'm not supposed to. I wasn't like Disneyfied, by TV or whatever. So for me, it was just normal. And I was raised like that, eating organ meats. And some of them I enjoy, some of them I don't. So now I do include organ meats. And recently on my Instagram stories, I probably was eating a lot of them. So some people might think like, oh, all she eats is elk and bone marrow and some other organ meats. But it's mostly steak for me, whatever steak I can afford. Many people like their ribeyes. I like New York strip. If I can afford that, that's what it's going to be. If it's not, then I'll get a cheaper cut of meat, and then that might be a little bit leaner. And I add maybe bone marrow to it or some other fat trimmings if it's too lean. Sometimes I can, now I have learned that within my menstrual cycle, I sometimes crave more fat than protein. So I'll do that. I'll just try to be really in tune with my body versus following like a ratio. Oh no, this is like how I'm gonna eat like every single day and just dismiss what my body is saying. So I'm trying to be more in tune with my body. So for majority of the time, yeah, it's some sort of steak. Sometimes I do crave chicken breast. I'll eat that, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just trying to stay in tune with my body and throw in some organ meats if I get them from a farmer. If not, then it doesn't have to be like, oh, I have to eat organ meats every single day. So it's a little bit of everything. And I wish I had like a equation or whatever recipe, like this is what I eat every single day, but it varies, honestly.
Yeah. That's what to me has been one of the coolest parts about all of this is reconnecting with my body and my instincts. And I try to make a lot of different things like sort of available in my fridge and not just, I think in the past I would decide for my body like what it should have or what, you know, it would have based on like, I don't know, maybe desires or thoughts of what would like be pleasurable to eat or this and that. And now it's like, well, there's this, and this, like what is appealing to me. And if it's like, I'm really, really wanting like beef cheeks and liver pate, like I'll go and have that. And then if I really want fish, like I'll have that. And I'm like actually asking my body, like, what does it want? And it does guide you. Like it really does.
Yeah. And I've noticed that, you know, like many people include eggs every single day. And for me, like I'm not intolerant to eggs, but if I eat eggs 2 days in a row, and that was when I was little kid too, like I had a phase, I still remember it till this day. I was like 5 years old or something, and I just wanted eggs every day. And then I broke out with this severe rash like all over my legs, and I was afraid to show it to my mom because I knew she wouldn't let me eat eggs anymore. So now I know that like if I do eat eggs too frequently, I'll break out in some sort of rash. And it's not necessarily that, oh no, you shouldn't be eating eggs. It's just how frequently and how much too. It's the same thing for me with dairy. You know, as much as for me, dairy is like a love-hate relationship. You know, I kind of like, I want to just eliminate all of it because for me, it's like, I can't have a little bit. I would have probably a pound, you know. I can't just abstain from it or moderate it, you know. I have to actually abstain from it.
Yes.
So, but I noticed like if I can just eat, let's say like 2 ounces of some really good quality cheese once a week, like I don't see any negative side effects from it. But if I do eat like half a pound of something and then do it frequently, I can very quickly notice the side effects and the phlegm and all that stuff, you know. So it really is like, I feel like it's frequency and dose dependent, you know. So it's like I want to label it as, no, this is like evil food. Like I'm not going to have this ever. But then I feel like when I do that, that's when I start craving it. You know, when I tell myself like, no, you cannot ever have this again. I'm like, oh, now I want some cheese and yogurt and this and everything, you know, just covered with Parmesan cheese. So
Yeah.
I try not to do that, you know.
Yeah. So an average day for you, just compared to when you started and now, what has changed over that time?
I feel like I'm actually including more variety now. Like when I started first, I was just eating New York strips and drinking water and salt. That was it for me. And I was actually feeling amazing. Like I wasn't, you know, contemplating, or am I getting the right nutrients? Or, you know, do I need the organ meats? I would have some liver here and there. But it was just New York strips for me. And now it's more variety. I'm including like more like wild meats like elk, um, bone marrow. I'm including more organ meats too, bigger variety of that, and more chicken. Before, like I didn't care for chicken. And it's mostly like here in Arizona that now that I live here, it's kind of like in the hotter weather, I don't feel like eating so much fattier foods or meats. it's more like leaner cuts, like more like fish and maybe more seafood, stuff like that. So I'm kind of like noticing the hotter it gets here, the less fat I want to eat. So yeah, so that's basically what changed, like just variety now.
I remember, I think I heard a really good podcast or episode that you did with Carnivore Yogi with Sarah. And you talked about how when you started, you were almost like binging on meat. And I thought that was really interesting because I've seen that over and over again with so many people. And I know I had that experience too, having been vegetarian for most of my life and
Right.
vegan for a big part of it, that there were days where I was like, am I really eating this much? Like, are we really doing this? Like my husband being like, am I going to scare him with like how much I'm eating? Like, and after a while, it definitely, like, once my body, I guess, like refed or renourished itself, you know, with so much of the nutrients it needed, then it like totally calmed down. But it was like almost scary or like unnerving at the beginning, like how much
And expensive.
what?
And expensive.
Yeah, like I mean, we're lucky in Czech, like food is really inexpensive here. But it was just bizarre. Like I was like, I just didn't know that people could put down this much, especially like women, you know. And I still eat much bigger portions of meat than my husband do. Like every time we go to a restaurant, they give him my steak and vice versa. But it's really interesting how it does like calm down after a while. So I thought it was interesting that you said you had that experience too. And I see it a lot. Like Kelly herself said, like when she started, she was eating around like 4 pounds of meat a day. And then after a while, it went down to like half.
Right. And here's my kind of theory about that. And it's, you know, when I did start carnivore, like I couldn't exercise. I was still recovering from 3 surgeries that I went through, and I was basically just in bed most of the time. And I could sleep however long I needed to, let my body wake up when it wanted to. And then I feel like that helped a lot too with just like the leptin and normalizing the hormones. And with that, like, yeah, I went through a period where I'm like, oh my God, I just can't get enough meat and fat. And after, I would say 2 weeks for me, it was just like when it kicked in, I would eat and all of a sudden, like my brain would be like, oh my God, like I'm so full. If I have another bite, like I'll throw up. And for me, it was just so weird because I would never get that signal. Like, and it was just like, wow, like what's going on? So I would put down my steak and just go away, which never happened before, you know?
Yep.
And I like that. I like that because, like you said, like I became so much more in tune with my body. But then I went back to, you know, I had to go back to work, started exercising again. And I noticed that signal kind of like vanished. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like, I'm still eating a little bit more because I'm trying to like compensate for the exercise. And I was still trying to, you know, listen to my body and just follow the hunger signals. And I'm like, okay, I'm eating more, but I'm still like, I feel like I could eat even more. And so my theory is that, you know, if you like kind of relax and you're not in this constant like fight and flight mode, almost like when most people are, they have to wake up like probably 4 a.m. and hit the gym at 5 if they want to work out before work, then go to work, and it's constant like stress, you know, and you don't really have that, you know, quiet time where you can just, okay, I can wake up whenever I want, and then, oh yeah, I feel hungry, I'm gonna eat. And I feel like all that is just like erased, you know, from most people's lives. And for me, like now, I went through a period when I listened to many carnivore podcasts, and many women were saying, oh yeah, I can eat as much as I want and I never gain weight. Like I'm eating 5 pounds of meat and nothing's, you know, there's no like side effects from it. And I'm like, okay, well, let me try that. Like I was probably eating 1.5 to 2 pounds a day. I'm like, well, if I can eat more, and why not? So I kind of like started eating more, and I started putting on weight. And then, no, it wasn't muscle, it was fat. And I'm like, well, calories still do matter, like, yeah, you can eat more. Probably you can get away with more on carnivore because of the thermic effect of food, of meat, but there's still a point where your body is gonna turn that extra energy into body fat. So that kind of experiment failed, and then going back to eating the normal and kind of trying to get that hunger signal again, it was hard for me. I'm like, I can't stop eating as much. And I was literally eating 5 pounds of meat. And like my family was looking at me like, oh my God, like how, how is this even possible? And for me, it was hard to go back to that, to eating my regular 1.5 to 2 pounds. And that's when I started measuring everything. I'm like, okay, this is what I need. Like, I don't need more than this. And it was kind of challenging to go back to having less bulk. And so that's kind of when I started thinking like, okay, maybe if I eat more chicken breast or leaner, the volume is going to be there because I can get away with, like, calorie wise, it's, more meat, but less calories. So that kind of helped me. And then now I'm kind of back to like, okay, I don't need to count anymore. Like I'm back to my, 2 pounds of meat and I'm feeling good. But it can be tricky a little bit once you start messing with the going past your hunger signal, just ignoring that okay, I'm full, but I need to fit in 2 more pounds, so I'm just going to keep eating. So that can mess up a lot of things as well.
Yeah, I thought it was so interesting that Dr. Ted Naiman said he saw some research saying that the average human eats 3 to 4 pounds of food a day. And it doesn't matter like what macro it is, so like if that's, a lot of the basis for his PE approach of like, high protein, high fiber, because it has the least amount of like excess energy as opposed to eating those 3 to 4 pounds from like fat and carb together. But I always thought that was really interesting that there's like an amount that humans just tend to average out at, regardless of the macros. Like you would think that wouldn't really make sense, but
right.
Yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all the protein to fat, back and forth that people have, and it seems to never end. The amount of back and forth that people do, but I kind of like it because I think people have to experiment, and if we don't have that dynamic of people trying and saying like, I'm trying this now and it's working for me, then everyone's just going to do the same thing. So I kind of like that there's debate and there's people who are like, I know you do too, because you're a biohacker too, you're an experimenter. The only way you're really going to find what works is if you try as much as, possible. And I see so many people who've had success in our space, and we all say the same thing. I've tried it all, right? Like I failed at everything. So now I know I found what works for me.
Right. For me, it's like first I thought, for me, higher protein was definitely a thing. I would eat probably over 200 grams of protein per day. And for me, that worked, and it was probably like 60% protein to 40 fat, something around those lines. Mm-hmm. And it worked. And then I'm like, and then other days I would be like, you know what? No, like fat is the thing. Like that's what, that's my thing now. And it was, and then I realized, I'm like, oh my God, like, because I started writing everything in a calendar and just like tracking like what I crave. And then I linked it to my menstrual cycle. I'm like, okay, so there's a pattern, like in this phase of my menstrual cycle, I'm actually craving more fat. So I think for women, it might be that, it might be just finding a sweet spot and figuring out like which phases of the cycle they crave more fat, and just not be stuck with this, oh no, I'm gonna just eat more protein because that's what I always will want. So I'm kind of right now at this point, I'm like, you kind of have to, for women especially, they have to figure it out, and it might vary throughout the month. For men, I feel like the leaner men are, and for women as well, the leaner you are, the probably more fat you're going to need in order to have the energy. And there's also I've seen this a lot, and I don't know if it's because when you go too lean with protein, your body does use more energy, and I feel like we do require B vitamins in order to process all that protein.
Yes.
And I see a lot of B deficiencies, which you wouldn't think that you would see on carnivore, and with myself as well. Like B6 was, for me, was very deficient. And I'm like, what's going on over here? Like, is it there's not enough B vitamins? But then I looked into it, and like I said, there's, more requirement of your body to use the certain B vitamins in order to process all that, heavy load of proteins. So that's another thing. And then I noticed that many people also do a lot of fasting. And I know there's benefits to fasting, but I also feel like there's detriments to that as well. And I do feel like you can become vitamin deficient from fasting too much. Not so much intermittent fasting, but prolonged fasting. And B6 vitamins probably will get deficient. And that's like my theory. Why my B6 was deficient, because fasting is a form of stress, and stress does deplete, or high cortisol depletes B6 vitamins. So that's kind of like my theories about it. So I feel like the leaner you are, you're probably going to need a little bit more fat than protein. But then there are people who argue that no, you just need more protein, because you're going to get more energy, because your body is going to convert that through, gluconeogenesis into glucose. But then you have the arguments, is it dependent on when it's needed, or your body just does it automatically? So there's just so many things going on, and I feel like there should be so much more research done around this, especially now with carnivore community. I'm sure a lot of people would love to participate.
Yes, yeah, I tend to think it falls more on the demand side, but that there is some supply, and I think it's just there's so much black and white thinking. It's like calories in versus hormonal. Like, it's somewhere between the two. Like, why is it always like it's this or that? What if it's like this gray area? Like, we all need to go in the gray zone a little more.
Yeah, and like you said, like, people do need to experiment for themselves. Like, I've started researching to see if certain women, and maybe like premenopausal stages, they don't go through gluconeogenesis as efficiently as women who don't. And I found some studies that show estrogen levels do affect the gluconeogenesis. And I'm kind of, so I'm also trying to figure out, maybe certain women are not as efficient as on converting protein into glucose. And that might be why I've coached many women who don't do well on carnivore, and they say that they keep struggling regardless of getting enough of calories and things like that. So that kind of made me look into, hormone levels and gluconeogenesis and stuff like that. So like I said, there needs to be more research done on that. So I feel like right now I'm in, like, I don't have like a definitive answer, like this amount of fat works always perfectly, all month, and this amount of protein is what works. Like, I honestly don't have the answer to that.
Yeah, if you're a woman, your cycles are powerful. Like they really are. I know I get really intense cravings for fish. Once a month. It's always a week, before my cycle, and it's like clockwork. And then a week later, I'm like, why is my fridge full of tuna? Like, I'm like, what am I gonna do with all this? Luckily, I have a vacuum sealer, but it's just weird. Like, and I'll suddenly be like, I need to have like ground turkey, and it's amazing when you start listening. And I wish people did that more, instead of just like dictating what they should,
Exactly.
be having, and start tuning in a little bit more. So when you work as a coach, what like, I guess for yourself, you've kind of reached an ideal body fat, like optimal health for yourself right now, or like what are your goals for yourself right now?
For me, I actually do want to put on more muscle. I've been wanting to do another DEXA scan, but now everything is closed because of the coronavirus. So I'm kind of waiting for that to open and just to check my body, because I did go through that period of massive calorie surplus, and I did feel like I gained a lot of strength from that, which I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But at the same time, I kind of got a little bit fatter, like it's not fat as like, I don't know, like it's not 20 pounds of fat, because I did notice that muscle mass did increase. So I'm kind of curious to see what DEXA scan, and I've been always testing with DEXA scan since probably 2016, my body composition. And it's interesting to see how, like on the scale, the number goes up, but then the body fat percentages go down and your muscle mass increases. So a lot of women, freak out about the number on the scale, which I think that can be useful, but I don't do it anymore. So my goal now is to basically go back, retest with DEXA scan, see what happened, and I'll probably post it on my Instagram. I don't think it's going to be all that great. I think my previous numbers where I was in, my body fat percentages were in 18%, I think, which I don't like going under too much. I've been at I think 14%, and that was a little bit too. My hormones were like, I was still getting my period and all that stuff, but I wasn't sleeping well, and I feel that was way too low for me. So I would like to maintain it like around 18% body fat. Last time I checked, I was at 20. I feel like now it's a little bit higher than what I would like it to be. So yeah, I'll probably work on that. My goals are to gain more muscle, probably lean out a little bit, and I'm also curious about my bone mass, what happened with that, because that increased since I was vegan. I was under 1, and then last time I checked, I was a little bit above average, so it was 1 point, maybe 1 or something like that. So that's the goal. See what happened with my body, and then probably, work on putting on more muscle and maybe leaning out a little bit.
That's fantastic. Now, you're also an entrepreneur, so tell us all about your amazing new business that you're launching with the Carnivore.
I didn't think we were going to talk about that, but thank you. So I've launched Carnivore Snacks, and right now we're on Kickstarter. The whole idea behind this is basically having a good quality steak on the go, because I don't, I found myself in many situations when I had to decide in between buying meat at In-N-Out. And it's not that it's a bad thing. I mean, it's still better for me, at least. Like for me, eating In-N-Out burger is better than actually eating carrots, because I get severe joint pain from eating carrots or something else that, that's plant-based. So I did not want to be in a situation when I have to pick, because to me, grass-fed matters. The reason why I went vegan was to save the planet, you know. So
Right.
now that I have learned that actually sourcing meat and supporting the local farmers and just making sure that it's regenerative farming, you know, it's actually helping the planet. It's reversing the carbon. So this is how it kind of started, you know, just through my own selfish want to have something good on the go, you know, basically a ribeye on the go, and me not wanting to compromise or buying from places that I don't want to support. You know, I do want to support my local farmers. I do want to make sure that I keep doing something to improve the health of this planet, you know. So that's kind of how Carnivore Snacks were born. And I met my amazing business partner. He's out of Ohio, through Instagram, actually. And he has 2 kids, and he wants to also make sure that this planet stays healthy, you know, for them, you know. So we created this baby called Carnivore Snacks, and we're on Kickstarter now. And we actually just today we reached our next our next level, where now everybody's gonna be getting a lamb, and we weren't even planning on it, but we found an amazing farm in Wisconsin that practices everything that we believe in. So yeah, we're excited that, you know, everybody who spent, I think, who pledged over $200, now they have a choice to also pick lamb as one of their cuts. So yeah, we're excited.
That's amazing. So what are the next steps like after it's funded? Because it looks like it's been going tremendously well.
Well, that's, you know, our the goal on Kickstarter was $15,000, but that's kind of like the trick that you have to play with Kickstarter. Our true goal was $150,000, but we can't really put that on Kickstarter, because if we don't reach that, like, we don't get any money. So we kind of like played around like what's gonna be reasonable, and we figured like 50, we're just gonna put in as minimum $15,000. We're at 95 right now, so we're pretty close. The next steps after that is basically getting all the meat from the farmers that we're working with, then basically creating or getting bags produced, we're still kind of finding a co-packer at this point. We have few in mind that, you know, it's kind of funny how, you know, the simpler the product, and we just want to keep it meat and salt, no additives, no preservatives, nothing. And we want to keep it strictly in US, like the production and meat sourcing, because we have found out that even, you know, we could save a lot of money going with grass-fed that's sourced from New Zealand or Europe, but it's still, as long as you cut it in US, it's still labeled as US meat, which is, I find it funny, you know.
Unless they
And we
change
could,
it. Yeah.
yeah. So we want to make sure that all of this is like made in US, sourced from US, and we could save a lot of money if we went and made our bags in China. You know, I don't know if we will be able to get it now if we made them in China, but we could save a lot of money just by doing that, you know. And sourcing meat from New Zealand, ribeye, grass-fed, is probably $4.50 a pound. And I found it crazy because sourcing locally, it costs us probably 3 times as much to get it. You know, I'm like, how is this even possible? Where you're after shipping all of that, you're only paying $4.50. How is that even possible with all that shipping, all that transportation, all the people who work? Like, it just baffles me, you know. So same thing with the bags. Like, how is it less expensive to source it from China And it makes me think about, how much money do these people get paid, like working in China. So yeah, the whole goal is to keep it here in the US, support the local, bag company, the local farmer, and and make it as close to the co-packer so that there's minimal transportation in between all of that. And the goal after Kickstarter basically is get everything that we need to our co-packer, get it made, and get it out to people as soon as possible. So the nice thing is that the co-packer that we're hoping to work with, he also has a shipping, so it'll be all done sort of in one shop, so there will be no transporting it from this place to that place back and forth, because that has environmental impact as well. So yeah, those are the goals.
That's really exciting. Well, congratulations on launching it. It looks like it's going so well, and I'm sure you guys are gonna, meet if not exceed your goals. So that's really exciting. And the whole carnivore community and a lot of people in the keto space, just low carb, are really behind you guys. So
yeah, I've been so grateful for the whole carnivore community. They've been supportive and helping as much as they can, even like through these crazy times that we are in now. So I'm definitely grateful for, and you had so many people in the keto community as well, because you can put as much fat on the ribeye chip as you want, and I've done that. I actually was putting ghee on top of the ribeye, and it's so freaking amazing. It's like, yeah, definitely perfect for both keto, low carbers, carnivore, just healthy eaters, hikers, people who are into traveling, being on the road, like for everyone. I would say especially it's good for vegans because they need nutrition. So I'm like, vegans, you should definitely invest in this project, but I know that wouldn't go well with them. So
no, not really. I can't wait to try it when we get back to Colorado at some point here. I'm not sure when.
yeah, I was gonna ask you, because you mentioned it, that you were gonna be here in Colorado in May. So I'm like, I was gonna send you some samples, but yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if they're going.
I know that I'll get to try them at some point. So I'm really excited to, just to share about it. And how long do people have to support it and back the project?
So right now, the last day is May 22nd. And if people go on Kickstarter and just search for Carnivore Snacks, and it's snacks with the X at the end, they should be able to find it. It's one of the projects that Kickstarter, they have a section where it's like projects we love. So it's one of we made it to that category for Kickstarter. So we're kind of like excited. So yeah, so people can search by that as well. And yeah, it ends May 22nd. It's the last day, but after that, we're hoping to open our website for pre-orders, so people will be able to pre-order on our website as well.
Awesome. That's so fantastic. Well, just as we wrap up here, if there's one thing that you could put on a billboard that the whole world would see, what would you put on that billboard?
Oh my God, that's one thing. I just make it simple, like whatever it may be, make it simple and enjoyable. Because I feel like the more people complicate things, including diet, including exercise, the more they're going to not do it, so just make it simple and don't stress about it.
I love that. That's fantastic. Well, Sylwia, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with all of us today and to chat all things carnivore, your new business, your lifestyle, a little bit of biohacking too. It was really great to get to have you here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Hey guys, thanks for being here for this episode of Fast Keto. Today, I'm thrilled to have Sylwia Tabor joining us. and she's known on Instagram as the Biohacking.chick. She is a biohacker and also an entrepreneur, and is launching and has been in the process of launching a new product called Carnivore Snacks. And today we're talking all about biohacking, from her time and years of being vegan, vegetarian, raw vegan, all the way to keto and carnivore, and what she has learned along the way, going through all those different variations on her diet and lifestyle. And we also get into a few topics a little bit deeper with women's hormones, and it was a really fun chat. And of course, at the end, we talked all about how she founded Carnivore Snacks, which I know is going to be a smashing success. It's a carnivore chip, not really a jerky, but a chip version of like ribeye and grass-fed meat, and it supports regenerative agriculture, which is fantastic. So hope you guys enjoy this episode with Sylwia. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for being here today and listening to the episode with Sylwia, or watching if you're over on YouTube. I have video versions of most of the podcasts as well as the audio. So if there's any episode you're ever listening to that you want to go watch, you can head over to YouTube and look up the Ketogenic Girl YouTube channel. I also post lots of recipes and cooking videos and all kinds of things on there. So if you haven't subscribed, head over and check that out. I really appreciate you being here, tuning in, listening, sharing this episode with anyone that you think might enjoy it too. And if you want to try out keto carnivore, or carnivore with me as your guide and coach, you can head over to ketogenicgirl.com. I have all of my meal plans there, and all the meal plans come with my coaching support and guidance as well. So you can ask any question that you have as we go along that pertains to keto carnivore. If you're interested right now, the plans that I've been personally following for the past couple of years to really optimize my body composition have been the Keto Carnivore Phase 2 plans. They are higher protein plans, and that's what I've been doing myself for the past couple of years to get my body fat percentage way down, starting out close to 40, down to 34, and as of March of this year, down to 21% body fat, and that's following those plans. So I really recommend those if you want to check them out at ketogenicgirl.com. It's the Keto Carnivore Phase 2 higher protein plans. And like I said, they come with my coaching and support in our members coaching group. I also have individualized coaching if you want to check that out. They are all listed on the website under coaching, and we can do intakes and take a look at what you're eating, what your specific goals are, and more. So all of that is at ketogenicgirl.com. Thank you so much for being here today and for tuning in. And until the next episode, wishing you a fat-fueled rest of your week. Bye for now. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for being here today and listening to the episode with Sylwia, or watching if you're over on YouTube. I have video versions of most of the podcasts as well as the audio. So if there's any episode you're ever listening to that you want to go watch, you can head over to YouTube and look up the Ketogenic Girl YouTube channel. I also post lots of recipes and cooking videos and all kinds of things on there. So if you haven't subscribed, head over and check that out. I really appreciate you being here, tuning in, listening, sharing this episode with anyone that you think might enjoy it too. And if you want to try out keto carnivore, or carnivore with me as your guide and coach, you can head over to ketogenicgirl.com. I have all of my meal plans there, and all the meal plans come with my coaching support and guidance as well. So you can ask any question that you have as we go along that pertains to keto carnivore. If you're interested right now, the plans that I've been personally following for the past couple of years to really optimize my body composition have been the Keto Carnivore Phase 2 plans. They are higher protein plans, and that's what I've been doing myself for the past couple of years to get my body fat percentage way down, starting out close to 40, down to 34, and as of March of this year, down to 21% body fat, and that's following those plans. So I really recommend those if you want to check them out at ketogenicgirl.com. It's the Keto Carnivore Phase 2 higher protein plans. And like I said, they come with my coaching and support in our members coaching group. I also have individualized coaching if you want to check that out. They are all listed on the website under coaching, and we can do intakes and take a look at what you're eating, what your specific goals are, and more. So all of that is at ketogenicgirl.com. Thank you so much for being here today and for tuning in. And until the next episode, wishing you a fat-fueled rest of your week. Bye for now.